Hello everyone, and welcome to the Student Leaders Conference. For those who don't know me, my name is Isaiah. I'm the Academic Representation Coordinator within the Voice Department. So today we're going to give you a warm welcome and recognise you within your role. If we're not having technical difficulties. Okay. I will start again because apparently we're having a few technical difficulties, but welcome to the Student Leaders Conference. Today we're here to give you a warm welcome and recognise you within your roles, both within the university and the Students' Union. So this comes not just from myself and my colleagues within Voice, but also our Education Officer, the President and Vice-Chancellor, the Pro-Vice-Chancellor, and the Manager of Student Voice and Partnership within the university. So whilst the university and the SU might not see eye to eye in all matters, student representation is vital for both of us and is wholeheartedly supported by both institutions. So to give you a little bit of background to this event as a whole, we started organising the conference around 5 years ago in this kind of format, at which point it was only focused on course reps and on academic representation. But since we've had so many changes to the structure of the student voice system and how we represent students, and including a wider variety of opportunities for representation, we've sort of opened that up a bit wider. So last year we decided to open up the event to student leaders from outside of Voice across the SU, and today we've opened that up even more with course reps and department reps, student council, network reps, equality and liberation champions, part-time officers, lead and peer mentors, and even society committee members among our attendees today. But onto the present and today's conference, you'll notice that today's event is delivered on 2 platforms. So Microsoft Teams Live hosting the welcome talks and the student experience panel, so that's the first and the last part of the day, while all of the workshops will be delivered on Blackboard Collaborate. This should give you a chance to have more interaction between yourselves as reps as well as with us for those workshops to sort of engage in the learning. But let's go through some house rules and today's schedule. So the President and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Nishan Kanagaraja, will be joining us in a few minutes to give you a warm welcome. He'll then be followed by your elected Education Officer, Adnan Rahman. Adnan will be introducing you to the key aims and projects of the year, including the aims and projects of the executive team at the SU. You'll then have the opportunity to attend a series of workshops. So most of these workshops are one-off opportunities, but today you can only pick to attend 2 of them, so choose wisely. The first round begins at 10:45 and the second round at 11:45. The links for those will be dropped into the chat during those sessions, as well as being on the original invite that was sent to you, and in the announcements in this chat here. So at the end of the last session, you'll also be given a link to the student experience panel, which will be here on Microsoft Teams in this chat, or you can just return to this window as such, which will be Q&A with the Pro-Vice-Chancellor, Professor Graham Wynne, your Education Officer, so Adnan, and 2 returning course reps, who will try and answer your questions and provide some wisdom about your role and student representation as a whole within the university and SU. We would appreciate for the duration of your sessions that you keep microphones muted. However, we're aware that while on Teams here, you can only put questions in text. Obviously on Blackboard Collaborate, you can turn your mic on and ask questions verbally. If you would like to interact with the session or ask a question, we would ask you to use the raise hands feature so that the moderators are aware of who wants to speak next, and so we can have some level of organization within those sessions. We should also know that your attendance to the workshops is being monitored. This is for the case of people who are in a representation position within accreditation, and that isn't all of you, but it is the majority. If you don't know about your accreditation and want to know more, you should contact your relevant department. So for academic reps, that's course reps at le.ac.uk. Council reps, it's su-council at le.ac.uk, and peer mentoring is peer mentoring at le.ac.uk, so on and so forth. Another note is that today's workshops are only the start of your development in your positions. The training team has made available a schedule of workshops that will be delivered across the year. Many of these count towards your accreditation, depending on the role you're in, and they are all incredibly good for personal and professional development during your time at university. With that being done, I will welcome very soon the President and Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Nishan Ganagaraja.
Good morning, can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you this morning. As introduced, I'm your Vice Chancellor, Nishan Ganagaraja. The surname is quite long. You can always call me as Nishan if that's easier. We are living in strange times. I would have loved to be there and see you all in person. But we all know why that's not possible. So it is still an opportunity for me to talk to you for a few minutes as your Vice Chancellor. Some of you might be wondering what the Vice Chancellor does. So ultimately, I'm responsible for the operation and the performance of the university. But the university is quite large, so I can't do everything. And I'm delighted you will get to meet Professor Graham Wynne. He's the Pro Vice Chancellor for Education. So he's one of the person in my senior team who takes overall responsibility for the student welfare and educational performance. So I work very closely with him. And I just want to say thank you for you putting yourself forward for this role and also giving up your weekend. I know weekends are very different to how it was in before March, but I think it is still important to have weekend, to have time away from the things that we normally do, to recover, to do other things. So very much appreciate you giving up your time today, but I'm delighted by looking at the program. You're going to have a great time and it'll be very useful development day for you. And I want to particularly welcome the first years. I'm sure you might have seen me in your matriculation welcome, but I think to welcome you as leaders is a double pleasure, because not only you have started the university, a new experience, coming into a new city for some of you, but you put yourself forward to be leaders. And I think well done, congratulations there. I think it is great to have students who are willing to put yourself forward to help the wider university and your student body. And you've been here very recently, some of you, others, those who have been here for longer, welcome back. And I hope this year is exciting and a productive year as well. I joined the university a year ago. In fact, on 4th of November, I'll be celebrating my first year anniversary. And a lot has happened in that year. And I just want to share with you very quickly what my priorities are. And I've been in university for a very long time. I enjoy working with students, and that's one of the reasons I'm still in the university. Because for me, university do two things, particularly university like Leicester. In university like Leicester, there are two things. One is we do research because we want to change the world. We want to discover new things. We want to solve problems. And it's great to be able to do that in a university like Leicester. We have staff and researchers and students who are passionate about making a difference. And the second reason I want to work in a university is producing the next generation of leaders, the graduates, and the people who are going to make that difference. And without them, the future will be very bleak. And I enjoy that interaction with the students to shape their thinking, to learn from them, to create a world that is better for everyone. And that's what excites me about university, and that's why I work in the university. And I've been a lecturer, I've been a head of school, I've been a dean, I've been a pro-vice chancellor. I've been through all the stages and have a first-hand experience of what students care for and what I need to do to make sure they have a fantastic time at university. And I also have 2 children who are at university, so I get a different perspective from them as well as what they expect from university education. So my initial observation for you is that the Leicester is a great university. We're doing well in many fronts, but I'm passionate about creating a fantastic student experience for our students, because you all committed your time, your fund, money, and a lot of energy to get the best experience from Leicester. And as I said before, as Vice Chancellor, ultimately I'm responsible. And there are many good things that are happening in Leicester, and I'm very proud of it. But we can do better. And I think you will know we have a fantastic reputation, but I want us to be even better than we are. I want to be within the top 25 universities in the UK. So when my students go out to the real world, people say, you're from Leicester, you're one of the top universities, you're coming from one of the top universities. And that's what I'm working with my senior leaders in the university to create that environment where my staff do the best they can for our students. And you as student leaders help me to do the best I can for the student. And I'm absolutely clear that Leicester can do that. And my job, obviously, I've only started. And in a few years' time, I shouldn't be happy if there are departments in schools where our performance is not where it needs to be. And ultimately, I need to take responsibility. So I will work with my heads of school, directors of education, and everybody to make sure every part of the university provides the best experience for our students. And the second thing that I'm very passionate about is student welfare and employability. University is not just academic. It is important, but it's more than that. For me, university made who I am. It changed the way I think, the way I look at the world, what I want to make a difference, what kind of difference do I want to make to the world. And that comes from interacting with staff, interacting with fellow students, being challenged the way I was thinking up to now, challenging other people the way they were thinking. And that happens outside the lecture rooms. And it is a real shame that because of COVID, we can't have some of the interactions we normally benefit from for that kind of interaction. We're doing everything we can. And I'm proud of how the Leicester Student Union put on a fantastic freshers events for you to, despite some of the restrictions, we did the best we can to give you the best start. But we need to do more, and we will do more. But I want to make sure we give you the best support in terms of your welfare, your mental health, all your requirements to support your stay in the university, but also your employability. Because ultimately what you want to do is to finish your university degree and go and do exciting things with your career, your life. And again, we as a university need to give you the right opportunities to develop those skills and also support you in achieving your ambitions. So this is what I'm trying to do. So hopefully that gives you a flavor of what I'm focusing my efforts and energy on. And that's not easy, because sometimes that requires changing the culture in the institution, and that takes time. It can't be overnight. Sometimes it requires money that I don't have, so I need to find other ways of creating that funding. And sometimes I will have 5 different priorities and I have to choose the right one. And I'm delighted that I've been able to work with Mia, Adnan, and the rest of the student union officers to help me choose the right priorities, because they can tell me from a student's perspective, this is what is important. So that's what I will do, and I'm pleased that we have this opportunity to work with you. And you as student leaders, you have a fantastic opportunity to make a difference. You in your own schools, own courses, you can highlight what are the challenges that you're facing. But I always tell my staff and students, whenever we look at how we can make a difference to the university, let's also take a moment to appreciate the good things, but also highlight the things that are not working, that needs improving. So we have a balanced perspective, because there are good things happening in the university, but there are things that we need to improve on. So I'm delighted that you as student leaders are going to do an important role. You might have different motivations to put yourself forward, but I can tell you, you can make a difference to your fellow students. Please work with your student union officers and share your challenges so they can tell me, Graham and Jeff and other people, so we can make sure we prioritize the right kind of activities for you. But please use this opportunity to make a difference to the university, to your fellow students. But I have no doubt it will also help you personally. You will get some leadership experience. I can tell you, when I was a lecturer, I used to think, I only asked the Vice Chancellor for £1,000. Why is he making a big fuss? But now that I'm a Vice Chancellor, I can see why that is difficult. Because if I give £1,000 to one person, if I get 50 requests, do I need to honor all 50 as well? So it just gives you a flavor of some of the challenges that I face. But it's important to have that experience at different stages in your life. So I think you're putting yourself forward to an important role. We don't underestimate the time commitment and what you're putting yourself forward for into doing it. But I'm sure we are here to support you. And that's what this day is about, to show how we can support you to do your job well. And I really look forward to meeting you in person. I'm in campus every week. And if you see me walking around, don't hesitate to just say hi, Nishan. I would love to speak to you and get to know you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this morning. Have a lovely day. And I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing. And if there are things that are not working, don't hesitate to let your student union executive officers, because my job is to create the best experience for my staff and students in this university. And that's why I became the Vice Chancellor for University of Leicester.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you, Nishan. Very, very welcome speech by yourself. First of all, hi everyone, and welcome again to the Student Leaders Conference. Some of you might have got the chance to know who I am, others have not. My name is Adnan, and I am your elected education officer here at the Students' Union. This is my second year as education officer, as I've been re-elected to represent you and your peers on all education-related matters. This is a big day for everyone, a big day for us as we are increasing our team and family of student leaders, and we get the opportunity to congratulate you for being elected in your position. As well as a big day for you, as this is the start of your training and development, both personal and professional. But most of all, this event is specifically for you, not just as student leaders, but also as partners in education. You probably know this, but the Students' Union provides their services on 3 areas: voice, support, and opportunities. Student Voice is here to work with you, for you, and support you, so that you can get your voice heard in relation to your education. Now, in a normal year, you would be attending all your lectures and seminars in the teaching rooms on campus. Following a lecture or seminar, you would very likely talk with others on your course or in your seminar group about how you found the seminar or lecture, whether you understood the material that was delivered, whether you found it interesting, whether you feel motivated to do something more or for the next assignment. You might discuss the approach the tutor took to presenting the material, or their speed of delivery of the material, or even the amount of content on the slides. In a sense, collecting that feedback that would be presented at student staff committees, network meetings, student council, or university committees. So, in a normal year, it would be easy for you to ask around to find out how your peers are experiencing their education. In a normal year, all of these conversations might have taken place over a coffee in the PERCG building or the library cafe, or whilst walking from teaching room to another. This is not going to be a normal year, as you all know. Yes, the university has promised a blended learning approach that they call Ignite, where you will have a mix of both face-to-face and online delivered learning. But it is still uncertain as to what proportion of teaching can be delivered face-to-face, and clearly social interaction will be more restricted, particularly when government rules change from one week to another. What is clear is that you will likely spend more time learning on your own over the year, with less opportunity to have those informal discussions that I've just talked about. Some of you will no doubt thrive in this new learning environment. Others among you may not find things so easy and may struggle to adapt to start with. One thing I can say is that this is new to all of us, students and staff alike. So you won't be the only one, and there will be plenty of support available both here in the Students' Union and within your academic department and wider university. Those of you who are returning reps may have previously heard the Students' Union say that student voice is important. In these difficult times, that has never been more true. Not just in some abstract way where students' views should generally be listened to and acted upon. In this new environment that we all find ourselves in, your Students' Union, your academic department, and the wider university needs to hear your views. because it is vital to ensure that you and your peers get the most of your education and have the best possible experience. Your voice can be made known through survey responses, input to student staff committees, student campaigns, your activity as student leaders, or ours as SU execs. Other volunteer student leaders such as peer mentors or equality and liberation champions. The university and your department, together with your student voice team and the Students' Union, will try to engage you in discussions around feedback data, as well as supporting student representatives to be a voice for students, as opposed to a former student experience consultant, and provide opportunities, often through a module or year survey, for you to shape both your curriculum and the academic policies that affect you and future students. The feedback from those endless surveys can present only so much of the actual lived student experience, and there are many other ways for you to get involved in improving your student experience and getting yours and your peers' voices heard, whether that is as a course or department rep, a member of a student network, sitting on student council, an equality and liberation champion, or simply submitting an idea through the Student Union's idea system. As your executive team, myself and the other 5 officers have developed this year's priorities based on yours and your peers' voice, broken down into 7 main areas. The first being COVID-19 and the adaptation needed around learning and support. The other being accessibility and ensuring that all access to learning remains accessible to students. The next being sustainability and providing tangible commitments and solutions to tackling the climate crisis. The other being liberation and ensuring that you as student leaders understand why we as a Students' Union need to prioritize this for students now and students to come. Safety, both on and off campus. Transparency, so you know that why we make decisions, how we make decisions, and the same applies to the university. And lastly, community, so that we all work together to better the experience for students and staff. And the workshops today will aim to provide you with an understanding of the basic skills and knowledge necessary for you to perform your role and maybe stimulate your engagement with the Students' Union to deliver these priorities. You will notice that we have workshops starting from communication skills, and trust me, communication skills are very important, especially nowadays. Student leaders workshops, which will look on how you can develop, improve and develop your leadership skills, as well as more specific focused workshops. In this case, you don't know, the Students' Union is here to represent you on student experience and higher education matters, but also to lobby the university to enhance inclusivity within the higher education sector. And the other workshops are there to give you a basic knowledge of what and how you, us, we can do that. How? Through grassroots activism training, and what? By understanding LGBT+ effective allyship and decolonizing the curriculum. As we said earlier, these sessions will take place at 10:45 to start with, and another option at 11:45. And we will provide you with the access link in the announcement section of this event, and then repeat it at 11:45, as I said, so you can do one more session. As Isaiah said, choose wisely, and I really, really hope you can make the most of your day today. I'll be around throughout the day. I'll be delivering one of the workshops, and as was mentioned earlier, I'll be sitting on a panel as well at the end of the day. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really hope you're able to enjoy the rest of the day, and I look forward to meeting you all.
Good evening, and welcome, good afternoon even. Welcome to the Improving Student Experience panel. With us today we have Pro Vice Chancellor for Education, Professor Graham Wynne, our Education Officer Adnan, and a returning course rep, Lewis Turnbull from Chemistry. So we'll start with just going around and having people say a little bit about themselves, and we'll start with our returning rep, Lewis.
Hi all. I'm Lewis. I am from Chemistry. I represent the M-Chemistry and Chemistry with Forensic Science. This is my 4th year in the role, so I'd like to think I have a little experience. A challenge I've come across is sometimes SCs don't get you where you need to go, and you need to email people separately. I'm floundering a little bit. Just be confident. and know what you want. That's been me. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. We'll go over to Professor Graham Wynn next.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here. So I'm Professor Graham Wynn. I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor for Education, and I started this role, when was it now? In September last year. So last year was my first year in this particular role, and as you might imagine, it was a little eventful last year, so things changed dramatically throughout the year, as you're all aware. So yes, it's been an interesting time in the role, but I've been at Leicester a long time. I was actually an undergraduate student here a very long time ago, and I've been here ever since as part of the university. I was a lecturer in physics for a very long time, and throughout that time I've had a concentration on student experience. For around about 15 years or so, I was leading admissions, which was a long time to lead admissions, but I really enjoyed it. And then for about 7 or so years, I led the education within physics. I was the Director of Learning and Teaching. Then I had a college role looking after science and engineering. Then I was the head of physics. And then I stepped into this role. So I've done lots of jobs at Leicester, and the student experience is very close to my heart. So I'd really like to hear what you've got to say today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. And we'll now head over to our Education Officer, Adnan.
Thanks, Kieran. Hi again, everyone. You might have seen me a few times today, so apologies if you're sick of my voice. So yeah, as Kieran very nicely said, my name's Adnan. I'm the Education Officer and have been the Education Officer for just over a year now. And thanks to students like yourself, I've been elected for another term. So I'll be sticking around till July of next year. And essentially part of my role is to support you, help empower you to represent students on your courses, as well as working with the university, with the likes of Graham and other people, on university-wide initiatives and projects, to try and change things to better the student experience. So yeah, I'll hand over back to you now, Kieran.
Thank you very much, Adnan. Okay, well, I think we'll move straight into some questions then. We've got, here we go. Sorry, just a slight delay, just got issue with that. Sorry for the delay. We had a question via email for Graham. Can you talk to us through the process on Ignite and how Ignite is working out throughout the year? And for returning reps, how are they finding Ignite?
Thank you, Kieran. So yes, Ignite was a process that we went through developing over the summer. We had a board of people, quite an extensive set of people from across the university who helped coordinate and work on Ignite. Of course, every school was working hard on making sure that Ignite would work for its cohorts of students. On the board we had overseeing this, Adnan was a member who, of course, you've met multiple times today and probably before that. So Adnan was a member, and we had strong student union support throughout the process. We had members of the Leicester Learning Institute, of our professional services, from the library, from all elements of student support. We had the head of student support services, and we had representation from all of our academic colleges. So we planned it all out and put it into place for the beginning of this academic year. It was a fraught process because we were working on timescales that were much shorter than we're used to developing new systems of education for. And looking at the question again, how is Ignite working out? So that's the critical question right now. So we've had 3 weeks of teaching now, and what we're planning to do in early November is begin evaluating how you're all finding Ignite in your different schools. Certainly, the Students' Union, Adnan and others are getting feedback from students, as am I. We had a live question and answer session. It was a week ago yesterday, and we were getting good feedback at that. Students are using the ignite@le.ac.uk email to ask questions and tell us about their experiences. And please, I'd encourage you all to do that. It's important that you tell us how you're finding things so we understand that, because we do want to know and we will act upon whatever you're telling us. So we're going to evaluate Ignite more systematically through November. That means we'll be asking schools to run questionnaires, very short and brief. We don't want to make these things laborious. We just want to get a feeling for how things are working out for you. And I'll be working on designing those questionnaires with the board I mentioned and with Adnan, who I meet weekly to talk about student communication. So we're really keen. Thank you. Adnan's popped the email address in the chat there. So please use that email to tell us how you're finding things and ask questions. So we'll be going through a more systematic evaluation of Ignite throughout November. And what we want to understand is how the different forms of blended learning, what elements work for different groups of students, what do students like, what do students not like, how can we rebalance the program as we move through into semester 2, the next academic year, how can we enhance the best parts and develop the parts that maybe aren't working as you'd like them. So yes, at the moment, I think it's a little early to say that Ignite is going well for everyone. I'm hoping it is, but I wouldn't be so bold as to make that assumption. We need to talk to students in November to make sure that we understand that. But from a process point of view, it seems to be going well. There's no programs that I've heard about where things are not working or coming to a standstill. So things seem to be progressing well. But we really need to get your full views during November to understand how things actually are developing. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
Thank you, Graham. We'll pass it over to Lewis for experience as a rep.
Well, as a course rep, you're sort of taught to take the good advice and the good comments and the bad comments and bring them both. And so far, we haven't, well, through the many channels I get information through, there's been nothing, no bad comments so far. People actually seem really happy. Everybody seems really informed. I mean, you know, you're all on the email side of things and there's no end of them, how Ignite's helping through the library, how it's going to work within the schools. Definitely from the chemistry department point of view, it's maybe even improved our lives a little bit because we're quite enjoying having asynchronous sessions followed by live sessions. So we're prepped for this live session and we're hoping that if we move out of Ignite in however long, that this can carry on into normal teaching. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to another question that's come through. This one's for Adnan and Graham. Can you walk us through on what may come and how will next semester look like?
Okay, well, I'll try my best. And where I have fallen short. Oh, is it on Graham? No, it's on me. Okay, I'll try my best to answer the question. And where I've fallen short, hopefully Graham can fill in the blanks. If I'm being honest with you, I think it's very, very important I'm honest with you. I think right now there's no predicting where we'll be, even in a week's, 2 weeks or 3 weeks time. As it stands, obviously, and Graham can go into a bit more detail about it. The higher education sector and which means universities across the country, have their own tier system, which is confusingly different to the government tier system for regions and cities more generally. And that's because, I presume, because there tends to be a higher concentration and proportion of students within universities. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Graham, give me a nod or not. I believe University of Leicester is in tier 2. Are we in tier 2? We're in tier 1. Okay, we're in tier 1. Okay, cool. And Tier 1 is essentially the equivalent of, I believe, the medium tier. So like it's a low number of places with blended learning and where possible some on campus teaching. There's always the possibility that we'll be moving into tier 2, potentially tier 3. I think generally cases they're not rising as rapidly as they are in other universities, like in Manchester Met and Northumbria and others. But I'd be lying to you if I said I don't anticipate cases will rise. They probably will rise. Hopefully they'll be in a controlled amount. It really is based off that, day by day, week by week, see where we're at, and that's the best answer I can try and give to the question. I'll hand over to Graham who can hopefully help out a bit more. Thanks, Kieran.
Thank you, Adnan. I think you did an incredible job of summarising what is an incredibly complex situation. So yes, Adnan mentioned the tiers system. Now, there are numbers of tier systems. You might have heard in the media, of course, that the government have introduced a new 3-tier system for local regions in England. Leicester's currently in tier 2 of that 3-tier system. On top of that, behind the scenes, there are also 4 tiers for universities to operate within that have been set by the Department for Education. Now we're in tier 1 of that system, which is, so we're in tier 2 of the local system and tier 1 of the Department for Education system. Tier 1 is essentially Ignite. That's tier 1, how we have our blended learning. So effectively, there would be a tier 0, if you like, which would be the normal standard on campus, everything as being very much more face-to-face. But tier 1 is Ignite. Tier 2, as Adnan was mentioning, is a reduced version of Ignite a version of Ignite with a reduced level of face-to-face teaching. And then tier 3 is essentially face-to-face teaching would only happen in very few courses, particularly medicine and clinical sciences. And tier 4 would be effectively a full lockdown of the campus again. Tier 2 would mean that most courses would have significantly reduced face-to-face time, with most of it being for practical sessions such as labs or fieldwork, this sort of thing. So we're currently in tier 1. As Adnan said, the cases that we're seeing at the university are stable and low level, so we are optimistic at the moment that we can continue in tier 1 in the near future. However, as Adnan was also saying, he's dead right that things could change very rapidly. So we monitor this on a daily basis, and we are ready to shift our provision as soon as it's required for the safety of everyone within the university. So the question was, how will semester 2 look? And lacking a crystal ball, I think it will look much like this semester. I'm hoping that things will be managed and that the numbers of cases does not rise dramatically, so that we can continue with the form of Ignite that we're running at the moment through the rest of semester 2 towards the summer assessment period. So I'm hoping it will look much like this semester. On the more optimistic side, if things improved within the wider society, we might be able to open up more face-to-face teaching. But of course, if things went the other way and got worse, we might have to be more cautious about how much face-to-face teaching we offer. So it's really hard to be certain because of the rapidly changing situation. And of course, Leicester University doesn't exist on its own. It exists within the wider country in the Leicestershire region. So we are dependent on what happens there too. But it's a very good question. I'm hoping that we can continue through being able to deliver high quality face-to-face teaching for you throughout the rest of this year. But we are dependent on the external environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Okay, we've had another question which was not aimed at anyone particular, but someone said they had heard about the government plans to move all teaching online 2 weeks before Christmas. Will the university do this anyway, even if the government doesn't pass it?
Thank you, Kieran. I'll attempt to answer that first, and then I'll ask the rest of the panel maybe to come in, because yes, there's been some media speculation and some rumour that the government might require teaching to move online 2 weeks before the Christmas break. This hasn't as yet been confirmed, and we're expecting an announcement on this next week. And when we hear that announcement, then as soon as we know what the government are asking us to do, we will work with the Students' Union, Adnan, everyone else, to make sure that what we put in place is as supportive as possible for all of you. And my main concern is that you get the education you need safely and in the best possible way for you in the given circumstances, and we support you to do whatever you're planning to do around the Christmas time. And you'll all have different plans around that period. So it will be important once we hear this announcement officially that we work with you all as a student community to support you in what you're planning. I don't know, should I pass to Adnan to maybe have his thoughts to that?
Happy for that to happen if Adnan wants to.
No, not much else to add really, other than, I sympathise with you all. Obviously, there's information overload right now, left, right and centre, from the university, from the government and stuff, and not really much else to add to Graham, other than, add to what Graham said, other than, just, it's important that you're looking after yourselves and taking in this information as and when you're ready and at your own pace. And just be assured that we'll work as hard as we can to ensure that your voices are heard, and the university will work, everyone at the university will work as hard as they can to make sure that you're supported in any kind of transition.
Thank you very much, Adnan. Moving to the next question, we've got a question relating to the ongoing screening programme and asking whether it will be used alongside Ignite to look at introducing more face-to-face teaching in practical subjects. So I'll pass to Graham first, I should.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for your question. Yeah, we already are looking at this on a daily basis, and what we're looking at is how many cases through which mechanisms of reporting are coming back to us. And we're also looking at this in a school-by-school level to see what we can open up. I think most practical courses, certainly in the sciences at the moment, are offering pretty extensive face-to-face teaching across the labs. And Lewis may be able to add to this, because I can certainly speak for physics and other areas, but Lewis might have something to add for chemistry. So if there's a specific course that you're interested, specific area of your course that you're interested in, please do drop us a line at Ignite and we'll follow up on that. But I feel that from the overarching plans I've seen, most courses are running a lot of practical subjects, particularly in labs. Lewis, would you like to maybe add your thoughts from a chemistry point of view, perhaps?
Well, I can only unfortunately speak for final year chemistry students, but as it goes currently, the labs are obviously at reduced capacity, but I know personally the doctors are working at full pace to accommodate everyone, so nobody is lacking in practical skills. Because obviously, chemists are practical people, and I know I've got my times in the lab, everything's scheduled, everything is made to be safe. You're not forced to go within 2 meters of anyone. Everything's done over the phone if it can be done when it comes to ordering chemicals and such. But currently we feel well informed. As of now, there was a slight delay of a week at the start, but that was during the non-teaching week, so it was bound to happen. But we're happy right now. I know a lot of people in the lab. I know, chemistry's going well, definitely. But I can't speak for labs as a wider across biology and medicine, though. But currently, as it goes, everyone's getting their experience in. Nobody's losing out. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any fresh questions at the moment, but I'll ask a question to Lewis. what do you think it's more difficult? You've been a rep for 4 years, as you said. Do you think COVID has changed the responsibilities of what being a rep is all about, or has it just put them more digitally?
Well, I'd say being a rep has been digital from the start. You know, not a lot of people actually come to you face to face with issues. Personally, I've released surveys and I get lots of responses because I always make them anonymous. But things change from year to year, and no matter if it's a pandemic or there's a new course change or this and that, there's always a new problem. And part of being a course rep and being a course rep over so many years is being able to adapt to that new problem. But SSCs, I did one at the end of last year that was on Teams, and the only thing that that changed from being physical and being online was the location and the occasional cat invader into people's screens. But no. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lewis. We've got an anonymous question, which probably is on the mind of quite a few students. When will students officially have access to the new SU buildings? In other words, when will the redevelopment be complete? So, does anyone want to answer that one? I'll pass it over to Graham. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Yes. It's obviously COVID has put this development a little bit behind, so that's been really unfortunate as COVID has affected most things. Now, my understanding currently is that the building should be ready for students to begin to use in January. So I think that's the current timeline that things are working to, assuming that there's no more slippages due to whatever unforeseen circumstances may come along. So I think the timeline is January. So I think it should be in place for semester 2 to begin occupation and opening up different elements of it. So I think that's the current understanding, unless anyone on the panel has more up-to-date information.
I will take that as nobody having any more ones. Did have a nice message for you, Graham, from Janai about your COVID-19 updates, which says they've been helpful in putting me and some other international students at ease, which leads on to, do you have any advice for international students on how they can be involved at their schools during this time?
I can try and answer this, and then potentially Graham and everyone else will feed into it. So, do I have any advice for internationals how they can get involved at school during this time? I think it really depends on first of all what method of learning you've undertaken, whether you're learning from home or you have got a literal method of blended learning, and also I guess what course you're on as well. I think it's quite a broad question, but I think I'd be interested to know how you mean. Like, do you mean in terms of advocacy for students? Do you mean in terms of actually feeding into any kind of change at your school? I think it's important generally as a student to make sure that your school are communicating to you. If there are anything you find that might be easy for home students to access or even understand, but not necessarily for international students, then please do raise it with your school. Please do raise it with at the Ignite email address as well, because everyone works hard to make sure that gap between home and international students and access is bridged. But it's evident that a lot of work needs to be done, I think, to kind of bridge that gap. But generally, I would say, just be sure to ensure that your school are communicating to you effectively. And in terms of your capacity as an advocate or as a rep, utilize any seats you have, on committees or on any tables. I'll hand over to Graham. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, thanks, Adnan. Some really good questions here, and it's connected to a question I was just seeing from, I think it's Destiny here. What have you found the best way to communicate with your cohort from experience? So I think I'll try and answer both of those at the same time about the international students and the whole cohort. I'd strongly encourage international students to get involved in your school. And what's important is think of the ways you'd like to communicate with your school and think of the ways that you'd like to get involved with your school. If you've got ideas about how you'd like to do this immediately, pop them into the chat so I can see. But let us know. Make sure that different people like communicating in different ways. And that was sort of why that question from Destiny jumped out to me. Some people like whole cohort events where they can come in and be part of a big group and maybe work in groups within that group to come up with ideas. Other people like to talk to individuals and they like the one-to-one time. And I think what's important is that schools offer a variety of types of communication. Sometimes these types of live events work well with people popping questions into question and answer because people feel that they can ask things they wouldn't otherwise feel comfortable in asking. Sometimes people like to sit down with someone and talk in depth about some issues. And I think having all of those communication routes open is really important. And if, as an international student or any student of our university, if you're feeling that you would like to communicate with us in a different way, let us know. We will do our very best to open up the communication channels you're looking for and you'd like to use. And I'd strongly encourage you all to get involved with your school. Schools are on your side. They want to help and they want to do their very best for you. So let them know that. And if you want to meet with them to chat and make friendly suggestions, I'm sure they'll adopt them. If you'd like to contact myself and Adnan and the rest of us at ignite@le.ac.uk with questions and ideas, please do that too. What's important is we set up the communication lines that you want and that you'll use. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Okay, so I believe a question for Lewis here, which I'll interject in as well. But what have you found the best way to communicate with your cohort is from your experience?
Well, usually just speaking to them face to face, but that has sort of gone out the window. A lot of people like to maintain their anonymity. They like to not know who. So anyway, SurveyMonkeys, or if I believe the SU have recently opened a question thing on the SU, and that's a excellent way of doing it. Best way to do it is to keep it anonymous, because a lot of issues usually affect a lot of people, so you don't need to know their names in the first place, and sometimes it's an issue that may not have affected you, but somebody turning up and saying, "Ooh, yeah, no, it's affecting me," you go, "Oh, great," and you bring it up. And but SurveyMonkeys are great. Letting everyone know your email address, the uni one, is great. I always find that you may get two sorts of issues that show up. Issues that everyone's suffering with, so easy to bring up, go to SSC, go to a course convener, but you may get issues where there's opposing points. And when it comes to that, usually I have to put it down to like a vote, because you're trying to represent everyone, but then you're also only one person. So I try and take both arguments and I put them forward, and you got to find that middle ground, because sometimes you can end up finding yourself being a middleman between two groups. But best way to communicate, email, SurveyMonkeys, just talking to people, because people are people and people love talking about their problems. I know I do. I'll pour a cup of tea, I'll talk with you about my problems. But yeah, thanks for the question.
Thank you very much for that, Lewis. From my own experience as a rep, I've been a course rep for 3 years. Interestingly, I had a slightly different experience than Lewis in the case of that we had a group chat for the year, and often when something was annoying people, you'd see it pop up quite a few times across there, and it was a good way to gauge people's opinions. So sometimes if it's a more sensitive issue, as mentioned, SurveyMonkeys are great because people can really say what they want. But when you're in a group chat with just the people on your course as well, it can have a good rapport about explaining what's really on people's nerves. Okay, we'll move on to the next questions, one of which is, are we expecting disruptions in case of a no-deal Brexit? So who wants to tackle that hot potato? Graham, thank you.
Hi there. Marielle has asked that question. Hi, Marielle. I'm hoping not, is the bottom line. Talking about crystal balls and unpredictability earlier, certainly that applies to Brexit as much as anything else. At the moment, I'm hoping that we won't see any disruptions and that our students who need to travel in particular will be able to make those travel arrangements smoothly and cleanly. As we get closer to Brexit, then I think things will clear up a lot. At the moment, I'm not anticipating any major disruptions, but if anyone has any concerns about any of the possible implications of Brexit, please let us know and we'll do our very best to support you. At the moment, though, it's somewhat unpredictable, but I'm hoping that it will be relatively smooth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Does anyone else have anything they want to interject on that one? Okay. One of the previous questions that has been partially answered by Isaiah was about opening up the SSC's meetings to all students in some way. Now, personally, I know that in the physics department, we have all of the previous SSCs going back to 2009 on our blackboard, but I will ask Lewis how it is in chemistry.
I know if you know where you're looking on Blackboard, you can go find all the minutes of your previous SSCs. If you personally want to get involved in an SSC and you're not a course rep, I believe it's down to the department, but it's always worth messaging the SSC secretary, who's usually, it's always worth emailing them and asking if you can just sit on the table because, sometimes your course rep, God forbid, may not represent your issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to ask Adnan about this one for how he thinks, whether or not he thinks the SSCs are open enough and just everything around that kind of issue.
Thanks, Kieran. I think it's a very good question. So I've worked on this with a couple of reps last year and a couple of staff members from the student experience side of the university. I think it's interesting. There's a range. I think conventionally there is a model within which SSCs are, based on. But what I found is with some schools, I'm going to shout out the School of English here. They have a really interesting way of bringing in students to the feedback beyond just the rep role and beyond having kind of a very official kind of structured way of bringing in the student voice. And it's very much designed as like a forum where anyone can just literally come in and throw their concerns and stuff like that. And I think that's a really interesting way of potentially moving towards, because one thing I'm conscious of is, particularly if you're a first year rep, is it's a very formal committee. It's a very formal structure. Sometimes you may come across terms or jargon that you might not grasp straight away. And I think part of making it easy for you is for you to be able to have the opportunity to develop relationships, personal relationships with staff members on the SSCs. And what I find is, even as an executive officer, my working relationship with the likes of Graham and other members of the university is quite productive, because we're able to kind of get to know each other, get to know how we work, and kind of, work off of that. And that I think has to be the general shift. Make it a bit less formal, and make it so that course reps are able to get to know who it is they work with, but also those who work with them get to know who the course reps are, and just vibe off of that.
Thank you very much, Adnan. Okay, a quick comment from Nora Drews, international student here. Depending on whether you're on Leicester or not, I found joining sports or society is a great way to get involved. There's also a society for international students, so that's always a nice one. So what do people think about students having different experiences this year, e.g. only having campus sessions once every 2 weeks versus more frequent on-campus sessions? And this can make it feel like students in different courses have different experiences. So who would like to interject on that one? Okay, thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Kieran. This is connected to a question that's come in at the very end from Anonymous as well. So I'll try to answer both of these at once because I haven't got too much longer left. So I'll speed things up. The final question was, why is there so much of a difference between schools and courses? And Lewis has said that he's getting lab time and people are happy. But on this questioner has said that they get no pre-recorded lectures and one seminar every other week, and they're not happy with Ignite. So first of all, thank you for both those questions. If you're not happy with the student experience you're getting on the course, please let us know. I had a meeting with 2 student reps this week on Wednesday afternoon with the representative from their school. And it was actually very similar to this question. So it might have been that course where there was no pre-recorded lectures and seminars every 2 weeks. And we're looking to change that up. So if you let us know about that, please do, and we will follow up on it. It's very difficult to standardize across courses because we are a university which has a really broad spectrum of disciplines, all the way through from medicine and clinical sciences and the physical sciences, the life sciences, through to the arts, humanities, business school, law, the entire spectrum of disciplines really. And what we did was, through the summer, we tried to work up what each discipline-specific version of Ignite would look like, and we asked each school to prioritize where, across all of their different types of teaching session, where the face-to-face would be most valuable. So we've asked schools to do that. And within that, because every year, even in the standard year, the student experience differs quite a lot. When last academic year, before the pandemic hit, different students had different experiences in different disciplines. It's sort of natural part of this. But what we want to do now is learn with you where it's working, where it's not working, and change things up to improve it. So if it's not working for you as a cohort and your students are telling you this, your peers are telling you this, please let us know, and we'll come in and work with you in the school to see how we can improve it. Okay, I'll hand over to someone else to add anything.
Adnan, did you want to mention anything on this one, or do you want to move on to the next question?
Happy to move on.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there's a question from Anonymous. If teaching moves completely online, will the university consider a reduction in tuition fees? So I'll probably pass that over to our university representative, Professor Wynne.
Yeah, so I think it's only fair that I answer that one. So if teaching moves on completely online, essentially, if it does that, we'll be forced into that position by the pandemic, and that's what the trigger points are for each tier. One thing I forgot to say earlier, actually, and I should make that clear, is the movement between these tiers of different Department of Education provision of face-to-face time. That's done in consultation with the local Director of Public Health. It's not a university decision. Not unilateral university decision. It's made in collaboration with the Director of Public Health. So essentially it's health, when health and safety concerns trump everything else. So if we move tiers, it's because of health and safety concerns. When it comes to the question around fee reduction, and this is obviously a tricky one, because we've, as many people who were involved know, put in more time and effort and work into our education this year than a usual year by some considerable margin. So the costs are actually at the university level quite high. Now, I know that's not what you might be experiencing because you experience the education as delivered, not as it was developed. So it's an interesting and knotty problem. So if we're forced into that tier, any tier of online learning, my bottom line here is if you're unhappy with the experience you've got, no matter what the tier, if it's tier 1 right now, as we discussed in the answer to the last question, let us know you're unhappy. If we have to move to tier 2 or 3 or anything like that, let us know if it's not working for you. What's important is your education runs smoothly, you're supported at all times, and you're getting the education you need and deserve. So bottom line is, please keep the communication up. Please tell us where things aren't working for you, and we will do our very best, and we'll come and talk to you with representatives of the school to make sure that the education is what you need and what you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Adnan, did you want to say anything about this or input on this at all? Or?
Yeah, very quickly, Kieran, if that's okay. So I was just going to say, really, obviously, I completely endorse what Graham said. I think for those students who have raised issues, particularly those students who are international students, and there's a clear disparity there in the fee that's being paid. You're absolutely right to be, I guess, a little bit frustrated with it. What I will say is, where you genuinely feel as if you've missed out on learning content or missed out on any access to any learning content that is, invaluable to your degree, then you do have a case to be made in terms of, tuition fee refunds, and there is a process for that. What I will say is, as a students' union, generally on this issue, there's two things we'd like to highlight. One is that our stance is that fundamentally we believe education should be free, and that's policy that's been passed at Union Council by elected reps as of last year, actually, and that we shouldn't have to be in a situation where education is a commodity that's being bought and sold like this. The other point to be made is we are actually working closely with members of the university, particularly those on the financial side of things, to make sure that they're able to communicate and make clear to you where this money goes. Because I think like Graham said, the university is still running, the resources are still important, and it is important that you have a clear idea of where these resources are going, particularly if you're an international student who, one, has to pay higher fees, and two, more often than not, it's not student finance who's directly paying for it. So yeah, those are just a couple of things that I think it's worth mentioning around the issue. Just very quickly as well, before I hand over to Kieran, a massive thanks to Elena, Isaiah, Ian, and Malak as well for all their hard work in organising this. Truly unsung heroes, never really been the face of anything here. So yeah, huge well done to them. I think they did a really great job. But yeah, I'll pass on to Kieran.
Thank you very much there, Adnan. And I think that's about all we've got time for. There will be forums with the Vice-Chancellor and the Pro-Vice-Chancellor in mid-November. And if there are any other questions, they can be sent in via email. I think Adnan will discuss them with the relative parties. I think that's everything from us. So I'd like to thank Professor Graham Wynne, our Education Officer, Adnan, and Lewis Turnbull, and everyone who's helped out during the day, and as mentioned, Isaiah, Elena, Ian, and all of our previous attendees, which was the Vice-Chancellor Nishan, Tony, our Equalities Officer, Raj, Lloyd, Malik, Tazan, and everyone else. Thank you very much.